Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts, and today I am going to build this XL750 by Tamiya, their newest kit. We did an unboxing video a little while ago, and today I'm going to build it. This is part one. I'm going to build this beautiful truck up through basically the chassis, and then in part two we'll do the body and the final detailing. But gorgeous kit, just gorgeous, looks fantastic, went together really well. I did a few little upgrades and some changes that if you're building one of these you'll probably be interested in. I love these Euro trucks, they're really fun to put together. This is no exception. A great new kit from Tamiya. Let's get started. Alright, so a few weeks back I did a unboxing of this kit, and now it's time to build it. I'm excited. I think this is just a beautiful truck. So I'm going to build it well, I'm not going to build it stock. I'm going to build the kit stock, but we're going to add some stuff to it. I'm going to use the FlySky FS-ST8 12-channel radio, and I'm going to use the Bayer SFR1 light and sound system in it. Since and I really want to do a nice paint job on this, I'm going to use the Tamiya matte plated, aluminum plated gearbox. Which I think looks good, and you can kind of see the gearbox probably in the back of this. I'm going to use a 55 turn motor, which is what I always use when I build the trucks. And then of course sealed ball bearings. So since I already unboxed it, I'm not going to do a lot of unboxing here. I'm going to get the thing out of the box, get it organized, and then we'll start to build it. Well, as I get started on this kit, the first thing I like to do is start painting the parts. And the reason for that is I can be painting and letting it dry and painting and letting it dry while I build the rest of the kit. And normally I don't show a lot of the painting, but on this kit I think I probably will show a lot of how I paint it. And there's a lot of parts to paint. Typical Euro kit. We've got the body here, we've got the top cap and the front and the rear arrow. We've got the side arrow, we've got the front bumper, fender flares, and then all the body pieces. Just a ton of parts to paint. And that's only the parts that are going to be blue. We've also got a lot of black parts that I'm going to spray with semi-flat black. And then also this interior, and this dash is just lovely. It is amazing. So obviously I have to light up the dash like crazy. I think I'll paint two-tone seats. I'm going to do a lot more painting, I think, on this truck than I normally do. And then it has a driver figure, so I'll also paint the driver figure. And I think while I'm doing it, I've had a lot of requests for a separate video on the driver figure, so I'll probably build 3 or 4 driver figures and paint them and do a separate driver figure video. So, okay, color. I've decided I'm going to paint this with Tamiya TS19 metallic blue. Now that's actually a little different blue than what they mentioned in the instructions, but I really like this metallic blue. And in order for it to really pop, I paint it with silver first, mica silver. So I'll use Tamiya fine surface primer on the parts, then I will paint them with mica silver and then metallic blue. And that'll make just a screamingly beautiful blue paint. And then of course I'll follow that up with Tamiya TS13 gloss clear. So I've got 3 cans of blue here, 2 cans of silver, 1 can of primer, and 1 can of clear, which I think will be enough. I'm not absolutely positive. I might take an extra can of metallic blue, but we'll see how that goes, and I'll keep you informed. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to clip out some of these parts so they're ready to paint, and then I'm going to go wash them with dish soap and water, and then we'll start looking at painting them. I just want to show a few things as I'm building the chassis. Obviously I'm not going to do a step-by-step build on this. I've built other Euro trucks before. But one thing you want to do is when you're setting these up, you leave this screw here loose and this screw here loose, so you can adjust these to fit your servo. this one mounts like this. And then the other thing is there's different lengths of screws. They're different colors, so you want to make sure you get the right screw in the right place. And so like this one, I'll tighten the screw here just snug, and then I will slide this into position so it's nice and tight, and then add the second screw. And then once that's done and everything's lined up straight, come on. Then everything's lined up straight, then I will tighten that sliding screw there. Go ahead and do this one. Okay, so here's one of my trees with some primer on it, just a thin coat on the back. So now, because of this guy, what I have to do is I have to carefully check these parts for dog hair and make sure the dog hair is gone. What do you say about that, Winston? What do you say? You want off the table, don't you? All right. Anyway, so what I will do is carefully check these for dog hair, any kind of runs or anything else, and then I'll use 2000 grit sandpaper to wet sand anything I find. Now, there was a dog hair right there that's stuck in the paint. Once I get that done, I will spray a coat of silver on them, and I don't need to do the back side. I'll only do the front. I've got a few more pieces here, some body pieces. They probably need a little more primer because these parts, the back shows. Okay, these parts, the back doesn't show, but on these arrow parts, the back shows. So I'll do a little more primer work on those, then double check for dog hairs, and then paint them silver. You can see here the chassis side, very easy to assemble. Spring hangers, this is an unusual part I haven't seen before. Everything else is pretty normal, and then I've got the second side here to go on. So I just need to screw this on together, and then this servo will mount here, and the steering block will mount here this way, and then we'll be done with the chassis. I assembled the links, going together really easily. It's very short. It's kind of nice on my workbench because I can actually move it around. So I get these pieces put on. Well, that takes the chassis up through bag A. The next bag is bag B, which is the front suspension and the shocks. Nothing notable there. It builds like every other semi-truck front suspension. The only thing I noted is that 2 of the shocks have a spring in them and 2 of them have a O-ring in them. And so the rear ones have an O-ring and the front ones have a spring. Other than that, pretty straightforward. So I'll go ahead and build the front suspension and get it on. Here's the chassis after bag B. Basically, it was just the front suspension, and the steering is hooked up now. So it's time to do bag C, which is the rear axle. Again, I've got a really good rear axle build video, so I'm just going to build it, but then I will show installing it because it does install quite a bit different, being a single axle truck, single rear axle truck. So the rear suspension on it's a little different since it has a single rear axle. There's 2 different rear spacers. One of them you can see has a kind of a notch up here and the other one's flat. The one with the notch is going to fit up here like this, and the flat one is going to fit back here. So we're going to take the one without the notch, the flat one, just goes through the rear suspension with one of these spacers like this, and then a bolt goes through it. Now, the other thing, whoop. Spacer, outer clip. Okay, the other thing is the nut faces out. Okay, so that's just a couple of the odd little details. And then it mounts through this hole right here with a lock nut on the back side. I'll do the other side. So I've got this mounted, nut facing out, and now the spacer with the notch on it, just drop a washer over here, run it through the axle, put another washer on it, and put a bolt through it. Now earlier when the frame was built, there's a capture nut on the inside of this cross member, so the nut's already there, and it should just thread right in. And it does. So now we have both of our springs mounted and ready to go. So now the bump stop's going down. This just mounts on here, and you can see that there's holes in the spring and there's some plastic pieces. Let me cut them out and we'll mount this. Okay, a unique little mounting system here. So the first thing that goes on is this plate. Bolt goes through it. And then there's a sandwich of this plate here and this plate that mount around the spring. This bottom plate actually has a place to capture the nut, but it doesn't hold in tightly. So we're going to basically put this here, put this on it, drop it through the spring, put this capture piece on, put the nut in, and then tighten it down. So that has to be repeated on both sides, and that'll lock all that in. And I just put that one together without Loctite. I'm going to take it back out, but I need to use Loctite on these. Just wanted to show how it went together. Once that's done, the shock's just mounted an angle down here to the bottom, and then that'll complete the rear end. Okay, so got the shocks mounted, rear axles all mounted. Now the next step would be to build the transmission, which I have already done, and since I have a good transmission build video, it builds like every other transmission. So really the next step then is to install the transmission. There's a drive shaft here, so I'll get that installed and mounted down, and then the battery tray mounts underneath like all Euro trucks, and that pretty much is going to get the framework done. Man, that went together so quick with one rear axle, and it was very easy. A great little truck to build, and I love how short it is. It's going to be very maneuverable. So let me get this mounted, and then we'll see what that battery tray looks like. Well, here's our chassis, completely finished. The battery tray mounts on there. That is a new piece that I haven't seen before. And so now we're to the point where the next thing are like fenders and some body panels. So and then painted parts. So now it's getting to the point where I'm going to need to start painting things. One of the next items will be these fenders and fender flares. So I'm going to paint these with semi-flat black. I'll just paint them right on the trees. As a matter of fact, I'll do all the parts that are semi-flat black, and then I'll have those ready to go. And then we'll also look at the continual painting of the other body parts that are blue. Here's a couple of these parts trees with the parts painted silver, at least on the front side. And so now it's time to paint the blue. I'm actually going to pick out two parts. We'll take this front grille, because it's going to have a couple different colors on it. And we'll take one of these side panels and we'll follow these two pieces particularly through the painting process. So what I've done so far is wash the parts with dish soap and water, let them dry, and then painted them with primer and then silver paint. Now this part is very nice. There's no bumps or anything on it, so I can paint the blue right on there. This part has got a few little bumps right here, and I doubt you're going to see them on camera, but it's a couple of little pieces of dirt or something that got in there. So I'm going to clean those up and put another coat of silver on it before I paint the color on it. So I will take the camera into my other room where I do the sanding, and then I'll take my camera to the paint booth, and we'll follow these through additional silver and some blue paint. And then all those black parts I just showed, I just sprayed them with TS29 semi-flat black, and they're drying. Well, this is in the bowels of my laundry room sink. So what I like to do is wet sand these. Now I've got some 1000 grit sandpaper here, and the only area where I've got any kind of bumps are right in here. And when I hit them with the 1000 grit, I can see them really good, and they just smooth right out. There was a little, obviously something in the paint, and we'll just pull that out. I'll just hit this real quick here, although I did not see anything over here. And then I've got a little bit of 1200, and we'll just finish it up with that. You can hardly feel this. It's almost like, feels like rubbing a cloth across it. In fact, it doesn't even take all the silver paint off. Very smooth now. So now we'll let this dry, and then we'll stick it in the paint booth. Alright, a little bit noisy because of the fans in the paint booth. I usually cut pieces of cardboard just to keep things clean. And so I've got this part that I sanded. Right now I'm just going to spray a little bit of silver on that. Won't need much. Okay. Now, my blue part. So the way I do this is, first off, I brush everything off with a brush to make sure I get off the dog hairs and everything else. And then I like to paint the backside, because I like to paint this edge, and this bottom edge, because sometimes they show a little bit from the backside, especially like here where a body panel hits. So I'll take my TS19 here. And it's nice and warm in my shop today. It's 90 degrees outside, so I don't have to really warm up anything. The paint's nice and warm. In the winter, I have to pre-warm the paint a little bit. So we'll get this going, and then we're just going to spray just a little bit on the back edges. We'll let that dry for a little while, and then we'll come back. Okay, so this is now dry. You can see there's a little bit of paint now that's come up on this side, which helps me out when I'm painting the front. This area is going to be black, so we don't have to worry about that. So we'll lay this here, and our silver part is now dry. So I'm going to go ahead and put the first coat of this TS19 blue on here, and I will do a relatively light coat. Just like that. Boy, it's a good looking color. Okay, same thing with this one. Okay. Now you can see I didn't spray a ton of paint on those. I'm going to let those dry about 10-15 minutes and then we'll put a second coat on. Okay, so my paint is dry. And it's a very thin coat. It looks really good on both pieces. So now I'm going to just add a second coat here. And it's going to be a little thicker. That's a beautiful color. Okay, we're going to let those dry about 15 minutes. Alright, so the final part is this TS13 gloss clear. And I generally only need one coat of this. Now this is going to get some black, and we'll go back to the workbench and talk about that. Well, I just wanted to show these parts out of the paint booth. There's that side panel, and here's that front grille. They turned out really beautiful. So now I've got to do some masking, because this area is black, and these two little panels here on either side are black. And also on the light buckets, this area is black, and there's a bunch of black in here with a chrome trim, so I've got a bunch of masking to do. And then these pieces that mount in here, the edge is chrome but the center is black, so I've got a bunch of masking to do, and I'm going to show that later. But I just wanted to kind of show you how that paint turned out on these. I'm still painting a lot of parts. But now what I'm going to do is go back to kind of my original area where I'm working, and that's these rear fenders and lights, and they're actually painted black. So I can go ahead and do that and mount the rear fenders, mount the floor, and some of those things. And then I'm going to make a little change in the chassis. Well, actually I'll show you what I'm going to do. This is the coupler mount that they give you, and what I'm going to do is use a coupler mount from a Grand Hauler, King Hauler style kit, because I want to mount a servo to the bottom of it the way I do, and I've got a video on that. In order to do that, I have to remove this tank. So there's two screws here. I'll take the tank out, and then I'm going to use this instead of this. So if you're wondering why this piece looks different in the future, when you see it on here finished, it's because I am using the US style. So I'll get to work on these rear lights. Since I'm going to be doing my own lighting in this, not using an MFC, I've installed some bulbs in here. And what I've done is put a red bulb for my brake light, an amber bulb for my tail light, a small amber bulb for a marker light, and a white bulb for a backup light. So then I'll get these mounted, and then pretty much it's just mounting everything on the truck. I'll probably do a little bit of tying up of this wiring before I do that. but that'll complete the lighting. And then they have a, I'm going to put the lens together on camera because it's a pretty cool multiple piece lens. I kind of want to show these taillight lenses because the quality is insanely good. I still, of course, remember the early Tamiya kits where they gave you a lens and then they told you to paint, you know, transparent red here and transparent orange here, and it was horrible. Now they've got this beautiful lens molded in two parts. So let's take a look at this. We'll cut the red part out, trim off the little bump here, and then the clear part right here. So it's a two-part lens so that you don't have to paint it or try to get any you want to get this perfectly smooth. What happens is, and I'm going to test fit it, is the red lens has got a shape like this and the clear part has a shape like this, so when it drops in it literally fits perfectly. You can't put it in backwards, it just won't work. And so it's super easy to put together. Now Tamiya, to their complete idiocy, shows a little glue cap, which is with a brush, which is the cap on the Tamiya cement. Now, you don't use this. I can't believe they show that. The way that cement works is it melts the plastic. So if you use it here, it crazes the plastic up terrible. And so anybody who's watched my videos for more than 10 minutes has seen microcrystal clear. It's PVA glue. Dries perfectly clear. It won't affect plastic. You don't need much, just a couple of little drops here on each side, and then we'll drop this piece in. Boom. And then I'll wipe off any extra. Now it's not super critical as this stuff dries crystal clear. That's why they call it that. So now here's the other cool part, is look at the back of this one. It's got a little sticker. It's got all these cool little cutouts. And so you just, the sticker set is also insanely good. I know we tend to think that this is just a redo of some other kits, but the body parts aren't, and they are amazing. So I'm going to cut this out. And there's two little alignment holes right here that you need to poke out. They don't need to be super done, but you do want to poke them out. Okay, and then there's this, you can see that the pattern in that's really awesome. And then these little alignment holes, there's two little pins on the red part right here, and we just line that up on the two pins, and then pull that into place. It also helps to hold in that clear lens. Too much that way. And there we go. And then this just glues on like that, and we will use the same. Look at how cool that looks. It's going to look really awesome with the lights on. And we just glue that on with the same micro crystal clear glue. Now at least Tamiya shows you using a what they call a synthetic rubber cement to glue this on, which you could use. You could use E6000 or something else, but micro crystal clear works the best. So I'll glue those on, and then I'll tie my wiring together, and then those are ready to install. I just want to show the back end with these lights installed. The wiring can run down back behind this brace. You can see the mud flaps here, and this is what it looks like on the bottom for the wiring. And then there's an air tank that's going to have to be assembled and mount down here, which is going to hide the wiring even further. So it'll really clean up this back end. And the little bit of wiring that's showing here, what I'll do is take a brush and paint it all semi-flat black so it'll blend in, and that'll look really great. There's a small piece that mounts right here to cover up the back, and then the fenders of course mount here with 4 screws up from the bottom, and that looks really nice, kind of cleans up the back end. There's 2 plates that mount back here. I was trying to decide whether to paint them blue or black. They actually get, this is a license plate bracket, but I thought a little dash of blue back there might look pretty good. And there's a, where's my decal? This decal right here goes on the bottom of the plate, which is kind of our little warning graphic. So I think that'll look really pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and screw these on. These are going to be glued on. I'm going to glue them on with E6000, and that'll kind of complete this back end of the truck. And then the next step is going to be the front plates. I really like this truck. So I got the lights. You can see the little grills in them. I got the decals on here, mud flaps. I added a little tank. You can see my wiring running up behind here, hidden very well. I still have to paint these black, which I will do. I also added some underglow lights just for fun. Ran the wiring up, and all the wiring is right here, along with some underglows from the front. And so now it's time to do the decking. Now this kit, like many of the new Euro kits, let me just talk about this really quick. They used to use tilt cabs quite a bit. They've gotten away from that because now they can stand up the MFC in here. If you use a tilt cab, that doesn't work. So they give you this base plate. There's this upper deck here that mounts on it, like that. The seats mount on the upper deck. Whoops. Sorry, goes this way. Upper deck. The seats mount here, and then they give you this 90-degree angled plate that mounts here, where you can mount electronics to the back, and there's quite a bit of space between here and the back of the cab. So plus it tends to block the view in. I'll add a bigger piece of plastic so you can't see any of the electronics. But it basically looks like this. Now you can mount this plate before you mount this plate, which is good because I want to paint these seats. I'm going to talk about that real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these with white primer. Then I'm going to mask off the center area and paint them with gray primer. So I'll have a gray and white seat. I'll actually probably show the masking on that. And there's a few other little parts. They give you these things here so you can wrap wire around them. I won't be using those. And this piece here that mounts on the body, it fits over this. So when the body attaches, it just fits over here and then bolts on the front. So I'm going to go ahead and add the couple little pieces that are required to this, which are the front fenders, this little metal bracket, and I'm not going to put those 2 on, and then I'm going to mount that down, and that'll give me a good basis for my truck to kind of pull my wiring up, and then I'll mount this plate later. So I'm going to go ahead and do those things. The truck is looking great. I love this short little thing. It's going to be a fun truck to run. Alright, you can see here I just mounted that floor and the little inner fender things. I've also kind of just playing around with my coupler base. I had to notch the cross member here to get the servo to fit, but now I can have a servo operated coupler on here. So the next step in the instructions are the side body panels. Now I've got these painted. I painted them right on the tree, and so if we take a look at these, the trees come in places like here that are behind another panel. Now this tree, for example, or this piece, is a side piece that I think is probably going to go somewhere in like this. And so it's got a couple of little white spots on the bottom, and what Tamiya does is they actually set those back from the front edge, but there's still a little white spot. And so if those bother you, or if you think they're ever going to show, I'll show you a trick for how to get rid of them. I'll cut out all these side pieces, and then I'll show you that. Okay, I know the lighting's not super good here till I turn on my booth, but I wanted to be able to talk without the fans in the background. So I took these pieces and I cleaned off where the trees attach, and they left the little white marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decant some paint. So I'm using this TS19. Now I need to turn on my my spray booths, and then I'll show you how I do this. So I just spray some there and use the brush to paint over where the white was. You don't have to worry about matching the paint because it's the same paint. These don't really matter because they're hidden, but I'm going to do them anyway. So that's how I handle where the parts were cut off from the sprue. You'll also notice that on the back side of these, my light went away, I only put one coat of paint. It's no clear coat or anything, it's just blue, but I didn't spend a lot of time painting the back side. Just thought I'd show as I'm putting this side panel together. It's made up of multiple pieces, but Tamiya has been doing a better job of figuring out how to run wiring. So they've got a little slot here to hold the wiring in for the side bulb, and this just captures it like that and allows you to put the bulb right over the window. That's pretty nice. This panel here obviously is designed to tilt down, probably for a MFC control. So that helps keep the wiring all in the right place. I'm going to finish putting these together. You can see this side here doesn't have the same kind of slots in it because it's probably fixed. Alright, so as I move along on some of the painting that I said I wanted to talk about more in this video, I've got some black to paint. And all the black I'm doing is semi-flat black, whether it's a spray can or an airbrush. I, of course, painted a lot of these parts with the semi-flat black from a spray can, but now it's time to actually do some masking. And so I wanted to talk about that briefly. Remember, I suggested I would use this piece as kind of a painting thing to talk about, because this area in here is the semi-flat black, and these little corners are the semi-flat black. You can see these side panels, they have a semi-flat black rail underneath that was already painted, And on the back side, remember I said I really only put one light coat of blue on there with no clear coat. You can actually see quite the difference in the appearance, but this doesn't really show. These two side panels are all put together now. So let's talk about masking. So I've got two things here I'm going to mask. First off are the seats, and I sprayed these with some white primer, although you probably can't tell. And so the way I mask these, I want to mask off this center part to continue to be white. So I use Tamiya masking tape for just about everything because it doesn't bleed. And so I'm going to just put this piece of tape on here like this. Same thing over here. Another piece in the middle here. Okay, so I've got the tape on, and now what I'm going to do is cut it. I like to put the tape on and then cut it, especially on these weird angles. So my secret here is I always use a new X-Acto knife blade. I get them, X-Acto knives, hobby knife. I don't use X-Acto, I use Excel. I buy them in packs of 100 because I switch them a lot. So when working with cutting masking tape, I always start with a brand new blade. And now this seat is pretty easy because it's got a molded in line here. And I am just going to follow that with my knife. And with this Tamiya masking tape, you will get a nice sharp edge. Voila. So there's this one seat masked. You can see this is a pretty easy way to do it. I will do both seats and get those masked up, and then I'm going to spray everything with light gray and then peel off the masking, and I should have a nice two-tone seat. So that's on the seat. Now on this, I've got a very easy to mask, just right along this line here. So that one I don't need to cut. I can just put the tape right on, right where I want it. This tape is so wonderful to work with. The stuff I'm using here is 10 millimeters. I also have 6 millimeters. Okay, so that takes care of that. I've got a mask around here, which is going to be pretty straightforward. And then, let's see, these pieces here mounting in here, and we want the edge to be chrome, but the center to be black. So I will just use my masking tape and tape off the chrome part like that, and I'll be able to airbrush this. And I'm going to actually I'll show airbrushing these two pieces. This I'm just going to paint with spray paint. So you've already seen me spray paint some things. So I'll finish masking off this and this. I'll show you what all the masking looks like when I'm done, and then we'll go airbrushing. So here's the result of a couple hours of masking. I went through the instructions and kind of looked at everything that was supposed to be black. So I masked off the side tank, or my stripe, or my mounting brackets, and my gas cap will be black. And then the other side, where these will be black. This is the clear roof hatch, and I'm going to paint it black so you can't see through it since there's going to be a speaker underneath it. The side windows have got a spot that you paint black on the inside along with the windshield, so I masked those off. Here's that front bumper that we were looking at, and it's masked, so that'll be black. Of course, the two little grills, we talked about those. The mirrors, actually these arms here, and the back side is going to be black. There's a small little grate in the front. And then a couple other things I discovered. The fenders are black here. So I masked those all off. Basically all the same technique as the seats. And then the body, which took quite a bit of masking. This area is black, this is black, and there's some window frames that are black. So now we'll go over to the spray booth, and I'll tell you how I use an airbrush on these. Okay, so before I start my airbrush and make all kinds of noise with the spray booth, I use an Iwata airbrush. I really like this. It's a dual action, so you pull it back for paint, push it down for air. Works really good. I've used it for a long time. And I always use Tamiya acrylic paints for airbrushing just because I've gotten used to them. X18 is the color of the semi-gloss black, and I have some that I keep pre-thinned. You need to thin the paint about 50-50 with Tamiya thinner, and I only use Tamiya X20 thinner for thinning. Now I use water for cleanup. So let me get my booth turned on, and we'll airbrush a few of these things, and you can see what they look like. And because of the noise, you know, I can't do a lot of commentary during the painting part. Alright, so let's look at some of these parts. We'll look at this piece because we talked about that before. So when I airbrush it, we'll just paint that black. We're going to paint this area black. And the airbrush, the paint's thin and the airbrush doesn't lay it on real thick, so I probably have to do a couple of different coats to get this big area the way I want it. So what I'll do is spray these big areas, and then I'll come back and spray them again. Spray this little one here. Alright, let's do this one because there's a lot of contrast with this. That's all there is to it. My theory is that 90% of the airbrush painting is the masking, which is really important. So now I'll just take these pieces and just spray the black on them. So I'm going to finish spraying these, and then when they're done I'll take them over to the workbench and we'll take off the masking. So what's the scariest thing I ever do on my videos? It's this right here. It's peeling off masking tape live. So let's take a look at some of these pieces. The chair we talked about, I painted it with white primer and masked off the center area, and then painted it with gray primer. How about that? That looks pretty darn good. Yeah. Okay. So there's a chair. Let's do this front clip because we talked about that from the beginning. You can see the black on there, and I use this blue tape for just covering up a lot of areas that I don't want painted, and the Tamiya tape goes wherever there needs to be a good line. Now I clear coated the blue before I painted the black because obviously semi-flat black, we don't want to clear coat it. It needs to stay just like it is. And this, folks, is where the value of Tamiya masking tape comes in, because you just don't get any bleed. I mean, those corners are sharp as can be. Okay, so here's this part. You can see the black here and the black in here. Let's do one more. Let's do one of these high contrast fuel tanks. Now, I don't even know if I painted it the colors they suggest. I painted the colors I wanted. So this is a gloss aluminum with a clear coat, and then the semi-flat black. So when I said I wanted to show a little more of my painting process in this video than I normally do, this is what I was talking about. How I spray it, how I mask it. Lots of little pieces of masking tape because just the way I laid the tape on. But boy, it's amazing how just a little bit of extra color paint makes these things look so good. I just think this is a gorgeous little truck, and I think it's going to look just super good. You can see why it took me a long time to lay this masking tape on here. Okay, so there's our tank. So there's a couple of pieces with the masking removed, and we can start to see how really great this truck's going to look. So I'll do the rest of the unmasking and we'll get back to working on the truck. So here you can see I've got my side tanks mounted, the side plate mounted. This side, you need to mount the tank first and then the side plate. On this side, the one with the fold down side, you have to mount the side plate first and then the tank. And you can see I ran the wiring up underneath here. and I also mounted my coupler plate up underneath. The wiring is all pretty neat. The tail light wiring comes up, and then I've got my side light wiring going up. So everything is well hidden, and all the wiring comes out up here in the cab just fine. The next thing to do is do the tires and wheels. Nothing exciting there, except there's not as many as most kits, and they do use the super wides for the front. So I'll go ahead and get that done. So there's our chassis, got the tires and wheels on it. Mounted down the coupler plate. Yeah, everything's looking really good. There's some aluminum plated pieces that mount on top of these, which I will just stick on with some E6000 glue. And then I made two little, I like this diamond plate aluminum, so I made a couple of plates to cover up these areas. And I've been debating back and forth, but I am going to paint those blue. So we'll have the hint of blue here and the blue on the sides, a little tiny touch of blue here on the back, and then of course the body. So I'm gonna end this video here. The next couple of pages talk about mounting a Tamiya MFC, which I'm not doing. I'm using a Bayer SFR. Talks about adjusting the steering, which I've covered in other trucks. And then there's the tires and wheels. And so really the next step is bag F, which is the body. The body is just spectacularly beautiful. And so I want to cover that in a completely separate video. I mostly wanted to, yeah, this thing is really going to look nice. I mostly wanted to hit the highlights of the XL750, plus show you my painting techniques in this video. So in the next video, we'll do the body, we'll finish up the wiring, and then we'll have a complete truck. So there you go. That's a brand new Tamiya kit. It is, this thing is beautiful. I know that some of the pieces are redos from other kits, some of them are new. The body, the cladding, the pieces, the way everything fits together is just spectacular. So I'm really excited to see the finished product. Give this video a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Helps with the YouTube rankings. And then we'll finish this in a part 2 video, so come back for that. Subscribe so you get access to all my videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.